Hello, I am Stephanie and I'm an artist based in France, and in today's video I'm going to do an FIQ, which isn't accurate actually because it's frequently asked questions and I'm just going to answer questions, but everyone calls them that. A few days ago I asked on my Instagram, ask me anything. I've been wanting to do FIQ for a while for some reason. I thought, why not? Let's go straight to the questions from Visuel, which actually is a friend. Does that count? Does it count? But it's a good question. Do you draw before modeling? I used to not draw before modeling, or hardly. I used to do what I called ugly sketches. And basically I had ideas and I would just throw them onto paper, but do a very quick doodle or sketch to just grasp the idea I had, which was really basic. And yeah, and that was it. But lately I've been really intently trying to be a better artist. Be more professional about it. I've realized that sketching is actually useful. Great, Stephanie. It just took you 15 years. Sketch so much more for studies and references, but also for color combinations, composition, and also to find ideas. So when I have an idea, I try to sketch it out a bit more before starting to sculpt. I still keep my working sketches fairly simple. The studies might be a bit more in depth because I think it's important for me to just grasp shapes and have them in my head before I start to sculpt. But other than that, my sketches are pretty quick and my sketchbook is not really pretty, if that makes sense. Sketching before sculpting is something that I used to not do much, but now I do it a lot more, and I think my work has become better through that, because you can really mature the idea before starting to sculpt, and sculpting is a really long process, and of course it evolves, and that's normal, but you have a bit of a better grasp of what you're trying to achieve. If you're sculpting or painting, it's good to start sketching practice more regularly. I think most artists do it quite naturally, and I've always had a bit of a sketching practice, but not with so much intent. There's a trio of questions from Fanity.n. And so the first is in French. Question dure. Est-ce que les matériaux que tu utilises pour tes œuvres sont écolos? Tough question. Are the materials that you use in your artwork, are these materials sustainable? Yeah, so that's a tough question. I would say yes and no. It used to be a clear no, but obviously since the sustainability or like climate change, the environmental impact of human activities is at the core of my work, obviously I had to change the materials I use and try to find better ones. So it's a work in progress, and I don't think, or at least right now, I don't see myself having truthfully sustainable materials, mostly because honestly it's quite impossible to have art supplies that are perfectly sustainable, just in the sense that whenever you do something, you have an impact. Whenever you use pigments, which, I mean, you could say it's natural, but the problem is you have to get those pigments, and pigments are often minerals, or you have to dig for them, so I mean, it's not sustainable as it. However, art, it's not like bottle packaging that you're going to use once and then throw away. Art is something that you keep for generation and for your kids or your grandkids. So it's not something you're going to throw away. I think that's really important to keep in mind, because no matter how hard you try, you're going to have some impact. As I said, it's impossible not to have one. Even if you use the most natural material, you still have to find them, or you have to get them shipped to you. Usually they're packed in some kind of packaging, and if it's not plastic, it's still something that has to be produced, and it's just going to be wasted. Paint, for instance, you have something that is metallic and something that is plastic for the cap. So you can reduce, of course, and I would encourage you to think it through, and I've switched a lot of materials to more sustainable ones. So I sculpt mostly, but I have also a 2D practice. And for instance, for ink, I stopped using pens, and now I'm using dip pen and ink. That's just, an example of a switch that I did. So the result is the same. I think it's even better. Like, it looks much better. But it's one example of I create a lot less waste than before. Then in my modeling work, I have switched to other clays, and right now I'm working and experimenting a lot with air dry clay, not epoxy clay, but the other one that is made with paper, pulp and pumice. So this is also, it's not perfect. You still have a binding material that is very likely some kind of plastic based material, some vinyl or something like that. And you still use glue, paint and varnish that is plastic based. Basically, whenever you use some kind of art material, you're going to have some plastic in it. So in that sense, it's very hard to find perfectly sustainable materials, but still you can try to kind of limit it. So that's what I'm trying. It's not perfect, but at the same time, I feel like if we were not in that kind of situation, I would not want to work as hardly in that specific way. Lastly, I upcycle a lot of trash or objects in my work. And if you look at the bulk in terms of size and materials used, so if you take this one, which is still not finished, most of the object is trash, and then I just have a bit of clay on it, and the clay is actually very little because I use armature and I bulk it up quite a bit. And it's not going to be trash, you're not going to throw it away. It's something that is meant to last. So I think that's really important. Many artists, and I'm one of them, I've been there, we tend to be really harsh on ourselves and to wonder, well, should I just stop doing art? But I feel like talking about certain issues through art is a very good way to get a message through, for one. And I also think that art, even if it's not essential to survival, you can live without art. I mean, your life would suck, but you can live without art. I feel like art is essential to your soul. That sounds cheesy. No, it's essential to your brain. Humans have always done art, and I think it's really important to us to be surrounded or to enjoy some kind of art. It brings a lot to us intellectually, but emotionally as well. And in that sense, I feel it's quite different. And it's probably not the artist as it that should be criticized, but there are many other industries. Just a few things to think about. What I'm trying personally, and what I tend to encourage others to do, is to better yourself, to try to find better options, to reduce your environmental impact. But it would be utopical to think you can completely have no impact. You're going to have an impact anyway, so the idea is just to reduce it. That was a long answer. How many time do you spend on one production on average? Yeah, 2 weeks on average, I think. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Seems accurate. Where are you based in, or where are you in France if you are based there? Yeah, I am in France, and I live in Vannes, which is a smallish town. It's about 60,000 inhabitants. It's not far from the ocean. It's pretty, it's cute. Can't say I like it much, to be honest. But yeah, it's very touristic. It's a small town. Question from Isa, Pup Isa. When did you realize that you can make art for a living? What was your daytime job before? I have never had a daytime job as it, so I'm lucky, I guess. What happened is when I was studying, my mom would help me, my dad would help me, but not quite enough. So I would always work in the summer to earn a little bit more money. And I've always been extremely careful with how much money I would spend. So I was still able to put money aside. But again, I was lucky enough to have parents who would actually help me financially through my studies. And even though I had to work a bit on the side, and in the summer, it was okay. I was not one of those students who would work, in the evening or on the weekends. And luckily, because I would not have been able to do my architecture studies with working so much, because it was so time consuming. So yeah, I was really lucky about that. During my studies at the end, I discovered sculpting and miniature because I used to make miniature food. I thought, yeah, I want to do that. I don't want to become an architect. I had a glimpse on what the reality was and was like, I not really like it. So I started to sculpt and I really, really enjoyed it. After that, I just thought, it's the best moment of my life to try because I had not much responsibilities. I was used to living a very frugal life like most students do. Honestly, I don't know. Sometimes when I think back, I have no clue how I was able to eat for so little money every month. But, students are very resourceful in that way. So yeah, I was not spending much money and was used to being very frugal with my money and, my lifestyle in general, like most students. So nothing crazy, just like buying the cheapest food, never going out, that kind of stuff. And so I was like, if I want to try to make this a reality, to make, you know, sculpting, miniature food, working with my hands a reality, I have to start now. And so I tried, and well, it worked. My luck, to be honest. I think at that point, it was in 2009, I opened a shop on Etsy, and I think it was the perfect moment to do that. Because Etsy was, you know, building, it was still youngish, but it was already a bit popular, but it was not crowded as it is today. And I remember I put stuff on Etsy and I sold something overnight, which I don't think any new shop would have that unless they already have a following elsewhere. And so, yeah, and then I started doing jewelry, miniature food jewelry, and that was my job mostly. So I lived during 8 years mostly of my miniature food jewelry, and I had other, of course, ways of earning money. And I think I learned pretty fast that as a creative, as someone who's alone, I've been my own boss for 10 years. You have to find ways to earn money differently, and so that's what I did, and it just worked. I realized that I could live from my work within 1 year. Yeah, I gave myself 1 year to see if it would work, and it did. So okay, next question is from K. Berlin, so it's in German. Hi Stefanie, was hast du noch als Ziele? Was willst du unbedingt noch erreichen im Leben? So basically, what are my goals and what do I still want to achieve in my life? What do I want? I'm actually pretty content where I am right now. So there's not a lot that I want more. Of course, I have goals in my art career, but they are starting to be realized. An upcoming solo show in 2022, so that was one of my big goals. So that's going to happen. I really would like to be in good art magazines. Yeah, so I have these kinds of goals for my art career. Mostly. And then in my personal life, I would like to be able to live with less, which I find it a bit difficult. I would like to be a bit more minimalistic in the rest of my life, but I'm not sure that's actually how I'm wired. So even though I have reduced a lot of things, I like to be surrounded by art and colors and things. So I don't like the Instagram look, all white and stuff. Yeah, I don't like that. But I like the idea to live with less and to live with less impact. And it's been a work in progress. And I would like to go further in that way. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't really have a lot of different goals. Okay, so now 22M asks how to make any basic perfect sculpture and which colors to use for long lasting. I've done a lot of tutorials about that question, so I'm just going to send you to those. I'm not going to be able to do teaching on that. But to make it really short, you want an armature, you want good quality materials, you want good quality paint. It's not rocket science, really. 21 aspiring cats. What brand of air dry clay do you use? Right now, I'm using 2 types of air dry clay. I'm using epoxy clay, which I would not recommend. No, it's very toxic. It's really hard to work with. It's very toxic. It's very toxic. It's really, really toxic. It's really not sustainable. I would not recommend it. I use it because it's practical in my creative research, but I've been replacing it a lot with another air dry clay. So I'm using epoxy clay from Epoxy Sculpt. In air dry clay, I'm using one from Japan, from Pradico. It's called La Doll Premier. But it's only the first one I tried, so there might be other ones out there. I'm not sure. So it's a fairly new material for me. Next question. Uma Boysen is asking how old young I am. Yeah, I'm going to turn 35 this year. Unfortunately, not in New York. I was supposed to do an art residency in New York and this summer, and I'm turning 35 in July. So yeah, I was really excited about turning 35. I don't know why. 35 sounds really great to me. I really like that age for some reason. So yeah, I was really excited about that. But yeah, not going to happen. But yeah, 35. I mean, technically I'm 34 right now, but I always tend to say the age I'm going to be next year. I don't know. Ilcool JB is asking, is there one medium art style you're scared to try but you would like to? Not really. Yeah, no, true. There is. I focus on art style. So there's no art style that I'd like to try but I'm scared of. Generally not super scared of trying new things. But there are art styles that I like and that I can't do, I know, because I tried and I don't really want to work on them. Like, I really like abstract art, but I'm not really good at abstraction and I don't enjoy making it, so I don't, but I like looking at it. So that's one thing. And one art medium that I would like to try but haven't really gotten around, so it's less being scared than just not having the time, is oil painting. I really would like to get into oil painting more. I even have some water soluble oil paints, which I wanted to try, haven't gotten around. And now I'm like wondering if I really want to do that kind of painting, so I'm not sure. But yeah, it's less scare for me. I'm not really scared of anything in art, to be honest, because I feel as an artist, you tend to be naturally brave. It's like you tackle your fear and rejection and challenges all the time. So for me, it's never about being scared of things. It's more a time question. Next question is in French from Malo Mathieu, which is a friend. Serais-tu partante pour peindre sur une de mes photos? De Blockhouse, par exemple. So he's just asking, and I'm going to show you some of his pictures while I'll talk, if I would like to do a collaboration with him. Yes, oui, carrément. Okay, next question. Aux quatre coins des arts, which is also a friend, good thing I have friends to ask questions, is asking, how do you handle frustration in your work process? I get over it. Sometimes it's frustrating, but I just push through it. I force myself through the frustration. If something is not working or something's breaking or it's not what I want, I'm just like forcing myself to make it work. So yeah, I'm like really good at that, I guess. I'm just forcing myself. And it happens a lot. Currently, I'm really forcing myself to finish an artwork, which is taking ages and I'm really not sure of the result. But I just force myself to finish it because I know once you've done something, you learn, you always learn, and then you're better artist after that, so just push through. Next question is from Harold Liu. Have you thought about working with wax to make bronze sculptures? Kinda. I mean, I've thought about it, but I just don't like bronze sculptures. Recently, I've seen some bronze sculptures that have been painted, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's nice. So maybe I'm reconsidering, but for one, I have no clue where I could do that, because you cannot do it yourself. Basically, for those of you who don't know, you do a prototype with wax usually, then you make a mold. Usually it's not you who does that. So you have to go to someone who makes a mold, the molding process, and then who puts the liquid bronze into the mold. Then you have your bronze sculptures, and depending on the mold making, you can make a series of it. So it's always been a good way and practice for sculptors, because you can make a limited edition of sculptures that are bit less expensive technically, and bronze is an interesting material in the sense that it's going to last for 1,000 years without a problem. And I have to admit, I like that traditional approach, but I don't like the unpainted version. But I've seen painted versions, which I like, so I don't know, maybe, probably not. Yeah, probably not. Not for now, at least. Scary Barreled asks frog. Next question is from Leah Lespina. What kind of clay do you use? So I answered that before, I'm not going to go back to it. Let's start. Please explain everything about the clay that you use. Again, I talked about it a bit before. Epoxy clay, air dry clay. I don't really use polymer clay anymore. So yeah, that's about it. Okay, so the phenomenon, I suppose. How long have you been enjoying this art experience? I've been enjoying it for all my life, in a sense. I've always done art, but I'm guessing more as a way of earning my life, earning money as a job. And that has been for 11 years. Mimi16, Partie Food est disponible. So I wrote a book about miniature food, how to sculpt it. And that person is asking if it's still available. It is, but you don't want to wait. Because I probably have about 100 copies left, something like that, and I'm not going to edit it again because it's my past. It was nice to make it. I did it all by myself, the layout, everything. I wrote it and published it, printed it, sold it over the years. It was great fun. So yes, it's still available. You can buy it on my website directly, and actually just from my website. So it's just you have to go through me. Dennis Duckirk asked 2 questions. The first, how can you stand to work with epoxy clay? It's so sticky. It is. Well, there's a trick to it. don't work with it, honestly, if you don't like it. Just like, it's not worth it. It's not really structural. It's not really strong. It breaks easily, actually. I would still recommend polymer clay for most beginners, or air dry clay, like the other kind of air dry clay. So if you don't like it, just don't use it. I don't see the point of using epoxy clay unless you really have to. And if you have to wait a bit for it to be less sticky. When you mix it, just wait 20 minutes and it's less sticky. That's a secret. The other one from Dennis. Also, what do you use for the stamps on your mushrooms? I use wire, armature. Yeah, that's it. Story of Petit Plat from start to now. Will be a motivation for us. Yeah, right? Okay, let's do this. I'm going to try to be very efficient about my story. I was studying in architecture, and in 2007, I didn't find a job in summer, so if you remember, I said I would always work the 2 months, or at least one, to earn some money. But this year I just didn't manage. I don't remember why. Anyway, so I decided to go to my father in Berlin for 7 weeks. And because I'm a very weird one, I'm a weirdo, in case you didn't know, I didn't really know what to do. I was in Berlin, crying out loud. So I decided to find a new hobby to do, something, to do with my hands. I always like to do stuff with my hands, craft or something. So I searched online. I stumbled upon a miniature cake and I was like, yeah. For some reason, I'm really finding that appealing, and so I decided to do that. I searched a little bit more about tutorials and how to do them, found out that you needed polymer clay, and Germany has Fimo, which is very known, and I've known it a bit. So I decided to just go for it and start. And I really enjoyed it. Yeah, that was the start of it. I went back to school and so on. At Christmas, so a few months later, I was like really keen on working again with polymer clay and doing miniatures because I really liked it. And then it just became addictive. And in 2008, because I was doing all that production of miniature food, but for which I had no use for, because I had no interest in owning a dollhouse. I just really enjoyed making miniature food. I decided to start selling it on eBay, and well, it sold. And then I started Etsy. I started Etsy, my Etsy shop, in 2008. The stuff I did sold overnight. And that's when I knew, well, I enjoy that a lot more than architecture. Architecture, basically, you spend all your time on a computer, and I really like to work with my hands. I made it happen, worked on it for a while. My only obsession was to do hyperrealism, so I really wanted to have the miniature food that was the most realistic possible. And then my lifestyle changed, my worldview changed. I became mostly vegan. I stopped consuming a lot less. I became more and more concerned about climate change, and somehow I wanted to express that through my artwork, and so I had a bit of a transition until what I do now. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty fast, actually. Okay, next question is from Sirin. I'm butchering all your names. What is your process of finding art shows, sending pieces to galleries? How did you start it? I am the type of person who digs a lot online. So whenever I want to make something happen, I try to find all the information I can get online. If you're willing to search for it, you can find all the information online for free. So that's what I did. So I searched how to get into art galleries, and I realized one of the good options, and you can get in touch with art galleries, but usually it's not working well because they get spammed. The better ones get spammed. Even the smaller ones, to be honest, they often don't have time. They don't even respond. So I tried that. I didn't think it worked. So I gave that up quickly, but maybe it's going to work for you, so I'm not going to say not to try it. So you want to, send your work, get in contact, phone them, and etc. I guess I never really felt I wanted to do that, because at that time I knew if I would go through galleries, it would mean my prices would need to be much higher, and I was already starting to sell my work, so I was like, is it worth it? Probably not. And then I realized participating in arts competitions, art challenges, art prizes was a good thing, so I started to do that. For me, it has been the better option, but then my work is quite unique. I do sculpt shows, and it's quite unique, so it stands out. Depending on what you do, it might be harder for you to stand out, I don't know. But the idea really is to try to stand out among a crowd. So it's part luck, part a lot of work, and trying really to get your work out there. So my idea was to, if I put my work in front of a jury, then at least it gets seen by the right people. And with a bit of luck, they're going to share it to art collectors or other art galleries. What really helped me lately was I was a finalist in the Beautiful Bizarre Art Prize last year. I sent another piece this year and they already featured me on their Instagram. And for me, that really helped. They also do group shows after the art prizes with the artworks they like best. I mean, of course, you want to work on your own art first. You really want to push it. And it has to be really good and you have to hone your skills, all of that. But then you just want to get your art in front of the right crowd. So that's going to depend on what you do. I know you started with mini food, but how did you decide with polymer clay? Why not ceramic? That was never an option for me. I didn't go to art school. I didn't do sculpture workshops or classes. So ceramics is not something that is easily accessible. You need the kiln, you need the materials, the learning curve is quite different. So it's not a material that you just start, from home and you just go for it. You actually need a lot of knowledge prior and you need the access for a kiln and so on. When I started to do that, I didn't have access to any of that. But polymer clay is easy. You just buy a package of clay and as long as you have a kitchen oven, you're good to go. So it's just accessibility. I thought later on to use ceramic, more for sustainable reasons. But the access to a kiln is still a bit of a mess for me. And I cannot have a kiln at home. They're pretty expensive, but I could buy one. But it's just my home is not designed for a kiln. I wouldn't be able to have one at home. And I'm not sure it's exactly the material I would like to work with in my work or with the ideas I have currently. So she also asks, how do you find websites that write post blog about you? Do you pay for it? What is your PR? I don't really have a PR. I'm not going to say that's how you should do. Again, my work is very unique and I've had 8 years prior to hone my skills. So I feel like I'm a bit different in that way. And I think if you're not an aspiring artist, you probably should do PR and contact blogs and magazines to write articles about you. I've heard about it. It's good practice. It can work. You have to be a bit relentless about it. But for me, it never happened that way. Just people contacted me. I've used social media for a while and I've always put my work in front of a lot of people and just showing it to the world consistently all the time. I used to blog a lot as well. I used to blog 2 times a week on average. I used to post every day on Instagram. I used to really be consistent about showing my work to the world while working hard to get it better. I was just lucky to be found by the right people. And once you get found by one big thing, then other big things will notice you. So it's probably not how you do it, but that's how it worked for me. Have a silly question. What do you sit on while you're making clay? My neck hurts so bad. Well, I have good posture in general. I do a lot of yoga, so it's less on what I sit than how I, stand. So I always try to be conscious if my back is nice and straight, if I'm sitting straight, if my abs are, tight. So it's mostly posture. But it can be difficult because you tend when you sculpt to hunch yourself. And one thing nowadays, maybe a little less, but when I used to do miniature food, it was really tiny. And so you want to have it at eye level. So what I would simply do is to work on something that was higher to my eyes. So I would have on my table things, and I still do that sometimes, that would just be an eye level or a bit higher. So basically I could still stand straight and have it near my eye. I hope that makes sense. And yoga. Do yoga. It's good. Stars of the East, which is a friend. What is your favorite piece you've made so far? It's actually a hard question. It always changes and it always tends to be one of the latest pieces. But right now, I would say the octopus on the yellow octopus on the yellow bottle. I really like that one. It's currently still in Melbourne, and you can buy it from Beinart Gallery. I almost kept it, to be honest. I was so close to keeping it. But then, you know, they asked if I wanted to be part of their show, and I was like, yeah, I mean, could use the money. But yeah, I really like that piece, and if it doesn't sell, I'm not going to be too sad about it. And I really enjoyed working on it. I think that's part of it. So right now, that would be it. Artist Gitte Nielsen asks, are you going to make classes in the use of epoxy clay? Yes. I'm teaching on Skillshare. I'm planning on making a class on modeling clays to get really into details on how to use them, because there's a lot to say about them. And once I have done that class, I can then make specific classes on specific clays. So yes, I'm going to do that. Ariel Fabian Castro says, "Tienes lindos ojos," which means you have pretty eyes. Thank you. Eclair says, how did you learn English? What caused you to want to advocate for Earth? Inspiration. I learned English at school and then really through work. I think I was always good with languages because I grew up bilingual. I've always spoken German with my dad, who's not German, by the way. It's a bit complex. I have a bit of a complex family tree. But yeah, so I've always spoken German with my dad, and my dad speaks 5 languages fluently, and then he, you know, dabbles in other ones. He manages a bit of French, but he's not really fluent in French. So I speak with him in German, and I speak French to my mom. I grew up bilingual. They got separated pretty early. When I was 3, I always spoke German to my dad from little one, and I think I heard it, and yeah, that certainly helped. And then probably the genes as well, since my father is speaking many languages. Maybe I never really looked into it, but I'm pretty sure like some people are more wired to learn languages, and I've never really had any issues. So I think those 2 factors made it easier for me to learn English, I guess. And then I went to a very good school in Germany. It's a French school. Yeah, I was just really lucky to have really good teachers, but I really got better when I started to do miniature food and all of that. From the start, when I started to share about my work, I shared it in English. And I know some people have criticized me for it, like, why don't you do it in French? And I'm like, the internet is in English, so why would I? And that really greatly helped my English, because I was forced to write and think in English a lot more, communicate in English in general, and then, you know, I watch a lot of stuff in English. Practice, practice. What caused you to want to advocate for Earth? I don't see how you can ignore climate change and whatever is happening right now in the world, and the impact on the environment, the extreme pollution, everything is dying, biodiversity is crashing. So since it's always on my mind, I don't know how I could not talk about that. And the last thing, inspiration. Like most humans, I'm full of contradictions, and I'm mostly inspired by nature, but I tend to search for natural inspiration on Pinterest. I know, right? I mean, I still get inspired when I'm outside and see actual nature, but often I just really like to see photographies of nature, because then you can go much further than whatever is around you. Whenever I work on something, or if I read about natural history or watch a documentary, I'm like really interested in nature, and I tend to go straight to the source. So yeah, that's my biggest inspiration. Another friend, Richie, asks, do you like horses? A bit of background. He wanted me to do a collaboration on and to make Pegasus. I don't know how you say it in English. You know, the winged horse. I don't really like horses. It's weird because I'm a kind of a snob. Can you say that on YouTube? Probably not. But that's true. I have the tendency to be a bit snob. And I know I can be a bit arrogant. I'm working on it. I'm not perfect. I'm working on it. Maybe that's why I don't like horses. I see myself in them. But I think they kind of look snobbish. They're too good looking. It's a bit like flowers for me. You know, everything that is extremely appreciated by others, I'm like, I don't know. I don't see the point. I prefer cows. I always, if you think about domesticated animals, of course, I really like cows because they, like, you know, kind of chubby. They're easygoing. You know, they don't give a shit. I really like cows. And you think flowers, I prefer mushrooms or weird things or beetles, you know. It's like butterflies, and prefer beetles. I don't know if it's sort of rebellious mind, like, no, I'm not going to be mainstream like you all, or if just like things that are more interesting to look at. I'm not sure. But no, I'm just not into horses. I don't hate them. I mean, they're animals. They can be cute. But I think that's the last question, right? Tell me it's the last. Yes, it's the last question. So And the last question is from Days of Clay. What motivates you the most? I'm not sure actually I understand that question, to be honest. I suppose what motivates me the most in my work, I'm going to go with that. I just love to work. So most of the time it's not really difficult for me. I just want to work all the time. The problem is sometimes I work too much. I'm really good at overworking, and then I need a break. Then I just take a break and I might not work or touch anything artistic for a week, and then I'm back on track. Yeah, I don't really need anything that motivates me because it's always what I've always wanted to do art. In retrospect, since my early childhood, I've always wanted to become an artist, and I always wanted to just do things with my hands, paint or sculpt. And in that sense, it's not really difficult to motivate myself because I love it. Thank you for sitting through this really long video. It's going to be hell to edit. Thank you for doing your part, so to speak, and sending me questions. So thank you very much. It was fun. I hope it was fun for you. I hope it was insightful for you. You know, maybe subscribe, maybe give it a like. It does help with the algorithm, I've heard. I don't know. And I really hope to see you in my next video. Bye.